Sounds good, man. Sounds good.
So, don't know what to say really. I've just feel a bit breathless after having tried 3 different Selmer saxes there. The last of which was a reference 54. I started on, what did I start on? I started on a Series 2 Selmer, moved to a Series 3 Selmer, and finished with this one here, just for point of comparison again. Again, hopefully a useful video to hear the 3 current modern production Selmers. And George, as I'm out of breath, I'm going to ask you what you thought, and then I'm going to collect my thoughts.
Okay, so we start with the Series 2. The Series 2, to me, sounded like it had the sweetest tone out of all of them. And after playing the Series 2 quite a lot, it's hard to put your finger on what it is that makes me feel like that, but I reckon it's to do with the amount of resistance that's there, because there's not too much and there's not too little. I don't know how you felt from being behind the horn this time round.
I find with the Series 2 there is a bit more resistance there than average, and I feel that I have to push against it. I find it quite a sort of blank canvas kind of sound, quite a sort of lacy sound that's very naturally pleasant, but it doesn't have its own immediate kind of personality and sound, shall we say.
Yeah.
You kind of have to work with it to define that personality, so you have to push through that resistance a bit more to get it to do that. I'm just jumping straight to the last one. I kind of felt that the sound just leapt out a little bit more on the reference. I mean, it does have that undercurrent of resistance there, and when you just push through that little level of resistance, when you go through it,
pops out.
It does. It was quite a big kind of striking sound. Maybe it was the fact that I was in the key of F and it was a bit more comfortable for me.
Maybe.
I did vary a bit there, but for me that was the immediate feeling on the reference 54. Whereas the Series 3 is interesting because it feels to me like it develops the ideas of the Series 2, but takes the sound forward in a more kind of pointed way. It's brighter, and it's just a bit more directional.
So you know how we talked about when you push through that almost that layer of resistance on the reference 54, and you get it's popping out more.
Yeah.
I feel like you have that instant pop with the Series 3. That presence is there.
Yeah.
Already. You don't have to push to try and find that sound.
Yeah, it's naturally there.
Yeah, where you could argue that the reference 54 and Series 2 could be a little bit more versatile in that sense, because you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Whereas the Series 3, although you can do both, you'll probably find that it's just going to snap into that brighter spectrum.
Yeah. I think that probably sums it up best out of everything we've just said so far. In fact, my experiences on Series 2s and Series 3 go back to being a tenor owner of a Series 3 way back, I suppose 8-10 years ago or so. That's when I moved actually, or changed, so it was prior to that. But I remember in my sort of assessment of the Series 2 against the Series 3, because I was very interested in Selmers at the time, on the tenor, I remember finding that with the 2, even though I loved the sound, I just found I had to just push and work with it just too much, whereas the 3, it came through a bit more. And also the tuning was just a little bit more tidied up, particularly at the lower end. I found it just slightly higher on the bottom notes, which is, perhaps when you're just doing a test like this, you don't notice it so much when you're playing freestyle. But I remember just doing some specific intonation tests, and I found that on the 3 just down there, it was just a little higher, and so that just made that pitching when you're playing with others really come through kind of true and correct.
That's good.
So that was one comment that I particular sort of feeling I remember particularly having on those tenor comparisons. But then also I just found it actually slightly louder. Just in raw terms, I just found the 3 just a bit louder than the 2. And I'm hearing it again right now, but as you just sort of rightly said there, with those resistance levels, it's like it goes into that sort of loud mode almost sort of immediately. The backup sound is...
It's almost like when you if you were to go on the Series 3, it's like you're using a ever so slightly softer reed in a way. Just that's how I would kind of explain that.
Yeah.
It's harder to understand through the microphone and you guys on your computers or whatnot, but here you can really tell the difference between like that. It's like the little shimmer of brightness at the top, which is nice actually. I do like it.
Yeah. So it all depends on what you're doing, and then the setups that you're using as well. So for example, I mean, I'm playing more of a jazz setup here with like a Meyer 7, but often the Series 3 would be used in a kind of classical format because if you marry up this Series 3 with like a Selmer S80 with a much darker natural sound, then the 2 of them play off each other quite nicely, where you can get that pointed sound and that focus that really works in those classical contexts, quartet work and that sort of thing. And it's not overly bright because the brightness is counteracted by having that kind of mouthpiece. Whereas if you go slightly brighter mouthpiece, I suppose the Meyer is a little bit like that, then the sound just starts popping out a little bit more.
What about the reference though?
Well, the reference is an interesting one because I think it really works quite nicely with this Meyer 7. It's quite an open sound and on the brighter side. Because as you said there, you've got the best of both worlds, where you've got that resistance, that sort of resistant kind of level. Let's see if I can play a couple of kind of mid-level phrases so you can hear that. Yeah, so it's kind of got that fatness when you're just being a bit more breathy with the approach.
It's got more body than the other 2, I would say. More body to the sound, like the warmth and the mids.
Yeah, and then when you want to push it and really come through, it does that whole thing.
Come out,
Hence, I mean, I hate to put sort of labels on things, but it makes it a bit more appropriate for being a jazz horn in that sense, that you've got that kind of lazy, breathy, fuller
side
kind of thing going on there, and then when you push it, you do need to play loud and with a brighter sound in jazz, depending on who you're playing with. So then that's very useful to have that at your disposal. So yeah, I mean, it sort of, I suppose, in conclusion, in some senses, I can see why the reference is so popular. We're saying a lot of positive things about it because it sort of suits the modern jazz player, pop player, those kind of styles. Classical, I mean, you don't tend to see so many classical players with the reference. Tuning wise, I don't think it's quite as accurate as the Series 3. Might get criticised for saying that. And obviously, as a classical player, I mean, it's important to be in tune on any genre, but classical players particularly look out for that. And those adjustments that Selmer made with the Series 3 over the Series 2 kind of work on those issues. But with the reference 54, it's basically in tune, and you can, when you have a more open mouthpiece setup, you can nuance those little tuning bits and pieces here and there to get it absolutely right. But it's just more the sound that it gives you that kind of appeals to that style of playing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a strange one with the say like a a saxophone that isn't going to have accurate intonation, you do have to make fine adjustments, don't you, with the embouchure. But I feel like that obviously changes the tone as well on each wherever you are making these changes along the instrument. It's gonna affect how you shape the sound basically. And I think because the Selmer Series 3 is going to be more accurate, you may have more of a consistent tone across the board of the instrument, whereas the reference 54 is going to open it up to little nuances, like you said.
Yeah, little areas where the sound kind of shines through a little bit more. Yeah, I mean, I just find it a nice, buoyant, kind of ripe tone. You know, trying to throw adjectives at it, which really appeals to my sort of jazz sensibilities, I suppose. I like them all, but if I had to pick a winner in terms of what suits me and my kind of playing, just having tried all three of them right now back to back, I would definitely go the reference in terms of the altos anyway.
Yeah,
that's my feeling.
Okay.
What about you?
Oh, it's actually so hard because I'm not really like so much of a jazz guy. I would probably go to the Series 3 purely because, I don't know, but then again, you could say it's more of a classical horn in a way. But then
when I had a Series 310 out,
exactly,
I was certainly not a classical player. I was using it more for funk, actually.
Yeah, well, that's the kind of thing.
I found it had the
I'm
definition
doing,
and the projection for doing that.
Yeah,
you know.
it does, exactly. So I would probably have to choose the Series 3 on the
Okay.
altos. The thing I like about Selmer, of course, is like it's such a special brand. It's so like the history behind it is so amazing as well. Obviously, being one of the first saxophone factory there was and whatnot.
Absolutely.
And it's great to have these three available for everybody to try and play and continue that legacy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like you do get what you pay for with the Selmers though, because they are so special sounding as well.
That's absolutely it. And you know, if you think about the quality players that have played on the Mark VI, just to name their most famous vintage instrument, I mean, just about anyone who's anyone back in that era, you know, the golden era of jazz, the 50s and 60s, played on a Selmer. And then that's kind of carried through to today, whether they're still playing on their vintage Mark VIs or Mark VIIs or before that, you know, balanced actions and what have you, or a modern instrument. It's just fantastic that Selmer can, you know, continue that tradition and produce instruments that are just as good as those vintage instruments. And you can never tell, you have to sort of let the course of time pass through really, because these aren't vintage instruments right now, but who knows how we'll be talking about them in 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years time, you know.
And who knows what they're going to have at that point then as well.
Well, exactly.
What they're going to be making then,
you
it's
know,
interesting.
Exactly. So, you know, right now, this is what we've got. Just from a functional point of view, I can say that they play brilliantly, and they are still made by that traditional Selmer factory. It's not moved its location. It's still there on the outskirts of Paris, and the history continues. So I suppose we should be grateful and thankful that we should
be very grateful that we got
these instruments still on the
go.
Yeah, great stuff. Cool, great. Well, listen, I don't know, I mean, I've done a bit of playing on everything. I don't know if there's much more to say, but I mean, it's certainly been interesting, and it's been a while since I've done the back-to-back testing, so it's always so interesting just to refresh your original opinions and
it's nice to be on this side of the horn as well.
Yeah, because it's always different, isn't it, when you listen? And I get those reassurances from you sitting right there, as opposed to you know, perhaps someone kind of coming in with the comments and it's a little bit more disjointed. But don't let that stop you making comments and letting us know what you guys think of these instruments. So yeah, I hope you found this useful, and hopefully, well, I'm sure we will be doing many more kind of comparison videos like this, because I get the feeling it's quite a useful resource to have direct comparisons. You know, the single videos are very useful and have their own benefit, but when you can hear it back to back, hopefully it's going to have, well, even more benefit for you. So there you go. See you on another one.